My name is Carol Judy.
And where do you live, Carol?
I live in the Clear Fork Valley in Tennessee. Egan, Clarkville, Morley, White Oak. It's a valley that's politically divided. It's 2 states, Tennessee and Kentucky, 4 counties. The 2 in Tennessee are Campbell and Claiborne, and the 2 in Kentucky are Whitley and Bell County. So I live and work there.
Okay, and so why do you take an interest in companies like Apollo and what they're proposing to do?
Because they impact the generations. They impact the ecology of place in a way that's not long-term healthy. They don't know how to live locally. They just know how to be engaged in a global marketplace. Their success goals and the success goals of people that live in the community are often contradictory. Because over the past 40 years, I have seen less and less of what we need to live. When they take the mountains away, they take away air and water qualities and ability to function. You take away the mountains and you've just interrupted a whole lot. I do 3 things in my life. I'm a place-based development educator, and I am a root digger. I get out and dig roots, and I'm a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. So, I have a very vested interest in enabling young people to live a better quality of life in the community. Because if my young people and elders are engaged in having a better quality of life, it just stands to reason that that quality of life perks downstream, so everybody's better off than harmed. We all need air and water. Rural people who enjoy rural living are the best guardians and stewards of the mountain woods, of the waters and the airs. We get out and dig and stuff, and we want the ability to be able to do it. You take the mountains away, you dry up streams, you clear cut. We can't do it. And I've looked at this for over 40 years, and my conclusion is we need to make more use of what we have, and we need to implement local sustainability versus industrial sustainability.
How would you say these operations have affected your livelihood, maybe the quality of life of people that live in your community throughout time? What have some of these things you've noticed have happened because of operations like these coal mines?
In 1969, when I married my first husband and moved home. The first 3 months I was there, I was like, what's going on? Why can't we do X, anything? And it wasn't, and how can companies get away with this? And about 3 weeks there, some local people took me aside and said, Carol, you keep talking like that and your husband will never be able to work in the mines. It was like mining was thought of as the only industry there was. But I looked around and I saw different, but I was 20 and didn't know really what to do, so I kind of hushed for a while. And I saw people helping each other out. That was bred into them. But the industry seemed to hold more power than it should. I still see that 40 years later. So I think that I just think it's not a healthy situation when there's health studies out now. Ivy League universities have documented what we've lived with for 60 years with health and said, if this kind of things are happening in the community of place, these kinds of health hazards, they label the minerals in the water and all that stuff, you're 20% more likely to have this, 15% more likely to do this, 30% more likely to have X, Y, and Z. And that data is numbers. But when it's your people, it's more than numbers. When it's your papa or your mama that's having breathing problems, or your child that's born, or your grandchild. I have a friend who had a grandchild at 2 who was facing some kind of facial cancer because of X, Y, and Z. And if we don't value the ability to have a good we should be smart enough, I feel like, as a nation and as educational institutions, to stand up and look at the data and look at the humanities of things and offset this stock bond return on investment kind of thing. The money economy is so skewed it's not even real. You know, I mean, there's tax dollars that go into supplementing things. I don't know if anybody really wants to look at us and ask why we need subsidies when they're doing food stamp reform right now. This is a ripple effect. But the food stamp reform is not about really taking money away from the food stamp program, but it's reallocating that money to directly subsidize the food industry instead of giving. So you take it away from the people who will spend it and give it directly to the companies who are producing it. And that's totally ignoring the fact that people are hungry to me. It's about a delivery system of power. When you have people that grow, when you have like a 40 to 60 year issue, you're looking at it from different generations' perspectives. So I could go on forever, but I don't, what I know is that it takes a collective to make a difference. And if that collective is stressed out about trying to manage and make it, then they're not going to really be able to stand up and fight, even though they're going to be the most directly impacted at times. I mean, the rising generation is what I call them, young people your age and others' age. You're not the young generation, you're the rising generation. You've got some maturity, you've had some experiences, and you're transferring knowledge, and you're looking at information, you're not looking at judgments on. So I think the rising generation has their work cut out for them. And because I like the woods and like to be in them and think you're healthier for them, I'd rather hang out with those folks than I would some of the others who are such naysayers. You can't make a difference in all. Well, you can. You can make a difference in your own life anyway.
There's a lot of truth to that. As a lifelong member of your community, do you feel like companies like Apollo have taken advantage of your communities?
I think industry is mandated to take advantage of by the very nature of their business. I don't think that they can't not take advantage of you.
Would you say that some of these reclamation efforts from past mining operations have been successful?
The ones that I've been most interested in following, I can't even find anymore. Some of the early on reclaiming efforts when they were working with fruit and nut trees and more native vegetation, they did some of that, but I can't locate where those sites are at. I've lost touch of the folks who knew something about him. I look at what's in place. When they started using lespedeza, it took them a few years to figure out that too much lespedeza in the diet of the deer, rabbits, and things of that nature would create spontaneous abortions. So it's a long-term, slow process around learning, and some of the biggest errors are in not knowing how to listen to local people, feeling like there's comfort zones of class and culture, and there's things that we're all trained to kind of like believe, or we're vested in believing. Longer term, one of the biggest bumps that I've seen is when people would believe a written report over a local's verbal history. Because if you can't document it, in the way they want you to, then it's not real to them. And maybe we even don't. I know we need environmental. We have threatened and endangered species in our communities of place, and yet they're not even on the books. Environmental impact statements need to be reassessed with today's knowledges. You're going to clear cut 800 acres. Well, we can talk about air and water quality, but who's talking about all the animals that used to live there? You take their homes and their food, and they're going to show up somewhere where they're not wanted and create all kinds of havoc. Like they have no rights. People want to quarrel about the ginseng digger poaching ginseng, but nobody quarrels about 800 acres being torn up, and you've just totally took the ecology of place out that'll let something grow. Nobody quarrels about that. I think private ownership of land is a really scary one for people to look at. Well, they don't know how to merge stewardship, which is the idea that you take people out of the ecology and just let them visit or wander a little, and living with it. So you either take it literally apart, or you totally leave, you just keep people out, and there's got to be a merging, a middle. Like gardening. If you garden just for food, and you did it as a child, it was a lot of work, and then when you get older, you recognize some of the values of gardening beyond the food. The ability to put your hands in the dirt, to enjoy good food that you've grown, work some stresses out in the garden. And the yard is always like, you got to mow it and trim it, and it's a lot of work to make it look pretty. But if we bring the two back together into gardening, so that your beauty for the eyes is amidst the beauty of the food as well, and start remerging things. It seems like to me, if you can live with that kind of concept, then we can get into creating the world we need.
What are a few of the things that you've noticed, some of the physical effects or visible from these mining operations, just in your everyday life, walking around your backyard?
Disappearing. I'm a root digger, and I love to dig golden seal. I don't dig that much ginseng. I like to dig wild yam. I like to get out, and I like to discover new beds and new places, but I like to revisit the old ones, because I like to track what's going on. It's just something I like to do, and notice what's different because your woods profile changes. But when you go back expecting to dig somewhere and you look up and it's clear cut, and no, they ain't mined yet, but that's a sure indicator they're fixing to mine. The streams are silted up, gates are up. You can't, so a lot of the times, just to be honest, they could probably arrest me for trespassing. 80% of our land is owned by multinational companies, and I have no clear imaging of where the boundaries are. I know local landowners, and they'll let me dig, and I know, where some of the ones that are there, but I have no idea of how to really locate the industrial owners, and don't really want to. I don't know. It just seems, if fire is on that mountain, we put it out. So why can't we make use of some of the other resources? We're the ones that put the fires out. The companies don't. They don't. I don't know if they don't know how to reach them, or if they just figure it don't matter that the mountains burn, or I don't know.
There's a loss of connection somewhere.
There's a lot of loss of connection. The other thing is, where I'm at there are a few good jobs in there, and a few good jobs ripple through the family. So at the same time that I've noticed the mountains disappearing, the weather patterns are always shifting, but you can it sounds crazy maybe, but when they cut this mountain over here and it's bare, it's going to open it up to the wind. There's not going to be anything in place to be buffer zones. So that's going to happen, and they do this, and this slides down, and you're looking at your grandkids or great-grandkids this will be their normal landscape. They will not understand what a healthy woods ecosystem should look like or ecology should look like, the diversity. It disturbs me that there's over 1,000 medicinal and culinary herbs in where we're at because it's a temperate rainforest in central Appalachia. There's not a lot of concern about what's disappearing in that landscape. Those are medicines and food, and just like the rainforest and along the Amazons and stuff, what are we destroying that we will regret later? Over 1,000, and that supports a $40 billion a year non-timber forest market globally. I don't understand the value of taking the mountain apart for coal, gas, or oil when there's this other industry that could really do long-term sustainability. I'm looking at a minimum of a 250-year type living with it plan. We could boot welfare and food stamps down the road. We could boot people trying to find a way to have income, so they try for social supplementary and all these social programs that are designed to let you exist but not really do anything else. We could kick them in the butt. It ain't going to be overnight, but we didn't get where we're at overnight. And non-timber forest products, if you include the quality of air and water in that, I don't know what the value is. Mountains produce 80% of the world's potable, tastable, drinkable, living kinds of waters. And to take apart the system that creates that, I mean, I'm puzzled by that. New York City cleaned up the mountains north of them for their watershed instead of building another water purification system in the Bronx. It was more cash economically feasible. They couldn't operate the water purification system in near as an efficient manner as the mountains did. Why are our mountains not as important for water and air as those? There is no New York City resident that pays a water bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, living there, I've noticed a lot of things. People think of what they're doing. They do work they don't know they do sometimes. Appalachian men are still generally the hidden migratory worker. They used to pick the fruit, and now they're the gunite blowers and high steel walkers, but it still takes the man out of his family for a week or two at a time. So we're not lazy. We just are not. Our solutions are not politically acceptable at this time. And to tell you the truth, we got some stumbling blocks of our own. You don't be where we're at for 60 years and walk away from it. We have drug issues. We're like the rest of the world, but I don't believe that the drug epidemic is related to money poor particularly, because money-wealthy young people also have many drug issues and epidemics. So I think it's something about feeling like you're connected to and a viable part of the human race. Because when you've done something that's supposed to make you feel satisfied and you're not feeling satisfied, if you don't know how to say, is it me or the system, you're probably going to blame yourself. Something's wrong with me. I don't think anything's wrong with people not feeling satisfied. I think that there's too many limits on how to understand or on what qualifies as satisfaction on that, And the woods is the best place to be to know that, to discover it. I know too many diggers who, when we go to the woods, even if we don't really dig, most of them are singers. They don't find a whole lot. They still count it a very good day because they've been in the woods, they've been able to commune with an inner self or with nature, or, pick the word that lets you feel good about understanding life and feeling connected to life. The woods are the church of the great outdoors to me, and to a lot of people. And the church of the four walls in the building is about fellowshipping with man. And if your church embraces that fellowshipping with man and helps make you part of it, you can also take that to the woods. And then from what there, you can bring it back, because something created us. I don't know what people's beliefs are or faiths are. It don't really matter to me. What matters is that you have a sense that there is something greater than you. And if you're limited in feeling like you can be a really good part of it, that's kind of like when your issues around not feeling like you're good enough for anything start, I think. So part of it, and spirit and arts and nature, they're all intertwined for me. I've seen kids that I knew grew up that had promised not be able to fulfill their potential because of some of the interrupts that industry does in a community. If you can't walk the land, if you can't find work that lets you feel productive and engaged, and if you can't get a job or get school or any of the things that most folks think of as an average thing. My part, I feel like after 40 years we do have some of the answers. One of the answers is you need to be able to exercise a sense of governance and control over the resources that let you live. Air and water is necessary for us all. If we can have it in the community of place, in these rural Appalachian hills and hollers, I guarantee you might have it in better chance of having it in the cities. Depends on what happens along the journey, I'm sure.